Hello and welcome to the Business Spotlight Series, episode number 48. Today we're here with Trisha Terns of Be Here Now LLC. Hi, Trisha. How are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, glad to have you on. It's so cool. You're our newest member to the Chamber of Commerce, and that's so exciting. And it's just it's going to be great. As we've talked a little bit before we came on today, I'm really excited to tell everybody a lot of the stuff that is clearly going to be very helpful to a lot of our members. So let's do what we always do, and let's start out with a little bit of a bio and learn a little bit about you and what's brought you to this point.
Sure. So what's brought me to this point? Wow, well, we could have an entire year conversation on this. But I'm originally from Chelsea, and so I'm super excited to be back in the area. I just moved back from New Jersey. I've been in Jersey the last 7 or so years, but I initially started my coaching journey as a gym owner. Really as a part-time beginner course at a CrossFit gym in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And I really enjoyed movement, and I really enjoyed anatomy. And I look at the body as like a science project, see what's possible and what you can do. And when I was an athlete and I was competing, I realized how incredibly powerful it was for your focus. For you to be able to like actually focus on one thing, like you're not thinking about anything, you're in the zone. And I really wanted to be able to share that with people because it was helping me in my professional life. It was helping me in my personal relationships. It was helping me in my confidence. It was helping me in everything. And so I transitioned from that. I met someone, I moved out to New Jersey. We opened a gym within 3 months of me moving out there, and then opened 5 locations. Technically we have 4 now. But we started Strong Together Fitness, and that went really well. So I kind of leveled up my coaching a little bit in that regard and became a business owner and all of that. And then from there, realized that I could have opened another gym if I really wanted to, but I really wanted to see what my next level of coaching was going to be. And one of the things that I really struggled with was in the gym world was getting people to commit to their health.
Right.
Something that everyone says is such a high priority and yet constantly gets put on the back burner. And so I really needed to learn myself as a coach how to break through to people in terms of their mindset and shifting that, I'm either all in or all out mentality, which is a mindset. It can be changed. It's something that is ingrained in people. They think that they can't, and they can.
Right.
And I didn't really know how to train that. So I became technically a certified high performance coach. So I'm certified annually. I have my next annual is next in a couple weeks, actually. But through 20 years of research backing the curriculum that I now teach in this regard, in this coaching practice is really amazing. It's had a lot of really great results for my clients. So I'm excited to share it.
No, that's great. And that makes sense. And I know we're going to kind of get to what you're doing now. But I think it'll be easy for people to see that correlation. As you said, health always gets put on the back burner, but it's all circular. Like if you want to be, you're going to be good at work, and you're going to be good to your, good for your family and good for your friends and all that. Like health has to be a part of that. If you're unhealthy, everything else is going to suffer. So I can see where coming from that industry and all of that experience would make a lot of sense coming into what you're doing now. Mm-hmm. So to that point, why don't you tell us what you're doing now?
Sure. Thanks. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's all kind of commingles, right? It all is interlaced together. And so you could technically look at what I do as being a life coach, but I really like the transition coach idea. Transition coach, performance coach, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, I help people work through major life or professional transitions. Having a baby, losing a loved one, getting married, getting divorced, right? Taking people through what life's going to look like when they're retired, right? How to sell a business, what to do, not how to. I'm not a consultant, so I'm very clear about that. But the curriculum that I take people through is science backed, and that's really hard to find in a normal life coach. Usually life coaches are they're certified through something, but they don't have the research, and that's really was something that when I was looking to do this, I needed to have that because I geek out on all the stats and stuff. But anyway, so I take people through that, and a lot of my clients are currently small business owners. A lot of them are, or they're either that or they're professionals that are in a leadership role within their company. And looking out into the future, like what I really predict to happen is that managers that are leading people are going to need some type of coaching background. And that all stems from leadership and communication. And so that's really what I love to teach. And that's the biggest results that my clients get when they come to me, when they're coming to me for whether they're either can't control their stress and they're completely distracted and they don't know how to get back on track, or they know that there's something next for them, but they don't really know what that thing is. And they're kind of unclear and uncertain about what that's going to look like. It's helping them build behavioral habits. And all the research that's been done by the High Performance Institute shows that some of the highest performing people in the world, like the Oprahs of the world, Oprah has been through the curriculum that I teach my clients. She's been a client of High Performance. So when you think about the Oprahs of the world, it's like, what are they doing? We all have the same time in the day, right? So what are they doing with their time management and their focus, and how do they juggle their own mindset in order to become so successful, so consistently for the long haul? Right. And there's two things that come out of that from the Institute, which are, in order to progress consistently like that, you really have to maintain two things, which is maintaining positive relationships. So you need to be able to communicate well. You need to be able to open yourself up, be vulnerable. You need to be able to communicate and persuade and influence and all the things communication wise in order to maintain your relationships. And then secondly, you need to be able to maintain a positive well-being, right? If the shit hits the fan, excuse my French, but if it does and you're on the plane, what do they tell you? They tell you, put the mask on yourself before you help your child, the person next to you, whoever it may be, because really you can't serve anyone if you don't first serve yourself. So I help really for people to reorganize what habit means to them and kind of get rid of some of the habits that maybe serve them for a time but no longer do, and reestablish some new behaviors.
Well, that's awesome. That's a pretty nice, that seems like a well-rounded nutshell. I imagine we could talk about this forever. I did want to jump back to one thing you said, because I feel like it does pertain to, our businesses and stuff. You mentioned that, every manager at some point will probably end up needing some kind of coaching background. And I can totally appreciate that, because there's obviously two parts of it. There's the concept of being a good manager. You obviously need to understand your business, right? You need to understand your customer and your business and your product and the thing you're trying to do. But that is half of it. The other half is that relationship with your employees, even if it's one employee or even if it's your vendors or your suppliers. But it's all those other people that you need to do the job. And that is just as important. And if you don't have the skills to maintain happy employees and have people want to work with you because they see your drive and your organization and things. I mean, I'm sure we've all had a boss in our life that, even if we love them as a person, if they couldn't follow some simple guidelines and kind of stick to a pattern and some rules, it gets really frustrating. Even for an employee that maybe wouldn't even consider themselves to be the best employee, there's nothing more frustrating than just having no rule. You know what I mean? You need that in a place. So I can completely appreciate, the aspect you're bringing from it sounds like it wouldn't just be for the employees. I imagine this type of stuff would translate right to your customers and all of that stuff. But yeah, I just think that's a very solid point to make.
I mean, imagine if you had, people don't really look at communication as a skill these days, but it very much is a skill, and it can be improved. Think of the people that you have worked well with and haven't worked well with. It's like, how do you really work well with those people that you didn't work well with before, especially if you're a manager? And going through the times that we have, as soon as the pandemic happened, I was jumped ship into the gym world to save the gyms, to help save them, because literally we all had to put our brains together, and we did very well. We had over 85% retention. And the only reason that they did that was because I was able to come in, and not just because of me, because they wanted to do the work. It's like they knew how to coach movement to the clients, but now they needed to be able to emotionally coach the clients, and they didn't have the tools to do that. And so the fact that they were able to get some new habits and behaviors and teach that and be able to help people work through stress, work through at-home things that are happening that are pulling them away from being able to get a workout in, right? Especially when stress is so high. That's happening now in organizations. And there's also, I don't want to take too much of your time here, but
you're good.
There's also a gap, a generational gap, right? I had a client reach out to me the other day, and the reason he came to me was because he had never worked with a millennial before. And he's in his 60s and he is selling his business. He's going into retirement. So there was a couple things going on here. In terms of transition, though, I imagine he needs to be in a leadership role to help this individual work with everyone better. He was talked back to, and he had never been talked back to before in 40 years of business. He had been in the business for 40 years. It's a third generation manufacturing company. They make brushes in New Jersey. So to teach him the tools to work with this new person better is so important. And he's going to be taking over the business. So there was no choice. He needed to be able to work with him better. And those are that's the skill that everyone needs to be skilled up at. And if everybody did even 5-10% better, the business itself, the profit lines all also start to elevate, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it is tricky. Everybody, it's the age old thing. In my day, like that's the expression, oh, in my day, we blah, 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 blah. And the fact is in the world of business, you can say that for a long time, but eventually, as you said, even after 40 years, it doesn't work that way. You have to eventually evolve and be able to work with other generations. It is funny, even at my age, I'm already starting to see that where I'm getting grumpier. Like I'm turning into a curmudgeon when it comes to the younger generation. And I'm like, these kids these days, and it's like, I'll say that occasionally to somebody who's much my senior, and they just look at me like I'm crazy. And they're just like, you have no idea. They're like, and it is so funny, but that's the trick is I know tons and tons of business people that are much younger than me and have a beautiful grasp of that concept of working with people older than them. And I know tons of people older than me that have a beautiful grasp of working with people younger than them. And that is truly important. But to your point, I definitely know a bunch that don't know how to do that.
Yeah, there's always the good ones, right? You find the golden nuggets and it's amazing. You can develop really great relationships. And a lot of the older generation crew are also becoming more open-minded to change, which, that's some of the things that people come to me for, though, when it's not working is that, I'm in a manager role, but like nobody in my leadership organization is leading me and I don't know what to do. And I'm either going to quit and find another job and I'm here to professionally switch or, and I'm like, well, how could you work with them better? Because if you want leadership, you have to show up for leadership. So it's about, then all of a sudden it's them needing to rise to the occasion. My neighbor called me this week on Thursday or on Tuesday. And she said, Trish, do you mind if I come over? I know you're a coach. Like you might be able to help me. I'm like, what's going on? She's like, well, I might not have a job tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, why don't you come over and we'll talk it out. Well, she thought that I'd be able to jump into the leadership team and do some type of webinar to help the leadership team advance themselves. And I looked at her and I was like, do you really think that they're going to be open to that? And she's like, no. I said, no. I said, unfortunately and fortunately, you need to become the communicator. You need to be able to lead. And so it was a totally different conversation than she anticipated, but that's kind of what's going on in the business world sometimes.
So that's actually a really interesting point. So kind of what you're talking about is that perception of, and I feel like maybe my own generation and younger than me, there's a lot of entitlement that might not have been there in some of the older generations. Yeah. And so it's sort of your point, she came to you because she didn't really like what was happening around her and the way other people were doing. But a lot of times people need to remember that you can be the person to invoke that change. Is that sort of the point you're making? Yeah. Like if you can't learn to adapt and adjust and respect people for not being the person that maybe you want them to be, the majority of the time, the average person you're going to talk to, the average person you're going to meet, they're not who you want them to be. There's going to be aspects about them that you don't like and that you do like and whatever, but you have to be able to accept them. And if you want to work with them, then there's that whole other side of it and if you're having trouble with that, it sounds like you'd be a perfect person to talk to.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Yeah, that stuff, it's crazy out there. It is. I think it's so funny, the concept of communication not being considered a skill. I don't know that there is probably a more important skill that anybody could ever possibly have. From friends to relationships to work to even communicating with yourself about what you want to achieve in a day, whether it's fitness related or work related or whatever, So anyways.
We could go into that for days.
I know. That's what I'm just thinking.
The communication aspect is everything. It's verbal, it's nonverbal, it's physiological. It's like when somebody confident walks in the room, it. And so a lot of people don't, they don't think about communication as being how their stature is and what they're hand gesturing. And are you hand gesturing with passion or are you what do you want to be taken as? If
Yeah.
you meet somebody on the street or you meet a new client, what do you want them to think about you when you walk away? And a lot of people, they're not happy with that answer.
Right.
And we have to shift that.
Yeah. Well, that is great. Yep. Well, I feel like we've covered quite a bit here. I know we're trying to wrap this up here at a decent time today. So real quick, I do just want to do our fun little thing.
Yes.
You've been watching something, and I don't know what it is, but you sounds like you're pretty excited about it. Can you tell us what you've been lately?
It's so funny. So I've been watching this show called Offspring on Netflix. And it's an Australian company, and it is all about this hospital, and this doctor is the main character, and she's delivering babies all day. And it is the funniest show ever. And my best friend, who just had her first baby, she named her after the girl in the show because we watched it together very often until we were done with the season, or the whole season. And it's too funny. So if you haven't caught it, you got to watch it.
So she was pregnant and gonna have a child and watching a show about a woman delivering.
We had to stop it at one point.
I bet you did. That's what I was gonna say. That's terrifying. Yeah.
Yeah, we had to stop it at one point, but as she was starting to get like pre-labor and stuff, we stopped it for a while.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. All right, that's great. Well, everybody will have to check that out. Obviously, everybody and their brother's got Netflix now. So Offspring, Australian comedy, just not if you're about to have a baby. That's the one rule. Well, hey, Trisha, thank you so much for coming by today and telling us about your business and coming back to the Chelsea community. It's so nice. The amount of times we hear that story about people coming home is just great. And it was awesome to get a much better idea of what you're doing with your transition coaching and some of your background and stuff. So thanks for coming by.
Yeah, no, I super admire you guys. You guys are doing a great job. So thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Yep. Thank you. And thank you to Shasta Grifka and Grifka Marketing for facilitating and sponsoring as always. We will see you guys next week when we will have Rick Taylor with Rick Taylor Real Estate on. See you next Wednesday. Bye-bye.